Election Day. And as we prepare for today's election, we kind of want to take a closer look at some of the biggest races that will impact you at the end of the day. So Shauna Riley, political science professor from Northern Kentucky University, is joining us here this morning to help us break down the ballot. So we're going to get to it first, because in Hamilton County, we're talking about a new sheriff that will be voted on from obviously the current, I guess, incumbent, if you will, sheriff, and then Jim Neal going up against her. I have to ask you this question point blank, though. Is Election Day, being a political science professor, one that you live for, or one that you cannot wait to be done with?
Oh, it's a Super Bowl of political science, if you will.
I like that. I like that a lot. So, okay, so in terms of the sheriff's race, just tell me a little bit about your thoughts on it, your perspective. What are you thinking?
So I think this is an interesting race.
Yeah.
We have two folks who went to high school together, went to college together, have worked in the Hamilton County system together for years, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like they don't know each other.
Right, right.
In fact, they know each other quite well. And they've even worked for one another in the process. So
right.
When we think about sort of the priorities that both candidates have talked about, McGuffey has talked a lot about modernizing the office, that the things she's done in the last 4 years
right.
to add technology, to create some infrastructure to reinforce safety.
Yeah.
And Jim Neal is talking about, working with ICE and immigration and how that's really an important part of the process here in Hamilton County. He's also talking about staffing shortages, something that we're seeing across the country, but specifically within law enforcement.
Sure.
So just thinking sort of those two very interesting perspectives on leadership,
yeah.
And certainly there's some animosity between the two as well.
Right, that's an interesting backstory there too, that they've worked so closely there with each other. Do you know if early voting, was it trending one way or another in terms of this vote, or is it pretty kind of deadlocked?
So we don't have very many polls at the local level, if any, and we don't know
where it's going to land.
They do have partisan identification attached to them, so one's a Democrat, one's a Republican.
Right.
But in terms of sort of what the vote's going to break down, we don't know as much as I think we would hope to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we only have to wait a couple more hours before we start seeing
yes.
the true kind of divide there. Now, in terms of other big races, we're also talking about the prosecutor's race here in Hamilton County. What's the background there? Where do we stand?
So this is a kind of a fun election, if you will. So Joe Dieters is no longer the
Hamilton,
prosecutor, and so this has opened up some choices for the voters here in Hamilton County. They're both women, so that's no matter who wins, there will be a female prosecutor here in Hamilton County.
Sure.
They have very different backgrounds. So Powers is the incumbent, so she took the position when Jim Dieters went to the Ohio Supreme Court, and she's a history of prosecuting. She's certainly worked within the office, and she's also been a judge.
Yeah.
Pillich, who is the challenger, is a veteran and a defense attorney and has worked in the state legislature. So very different background. She's not been a prosecutor before, but she has argued before the Ohio Supreme Court. So just thinking of, experience, regardless of what side. Yeah. It does matter.
Yeah, exactly. It does kind of have that weight to it. This is just a question out of total curiosity. In terms of if someone's on the ballot who is the incumbent, does history show that they have a higher percentage in getting reelected? And again, this is just out of my curiosity's sake. Are people more willing to kind of fill in the name that they might recognize more?
So we use a lot of cues when we go to vote. So party is one, so Republicans, a Democrat, generally what they stand for.
Right.
The next thing we use is incumbency. And so it does say incumbent on the ballot, you know who that person is. Now, if you're not happy with how things are going, it's also a punishment, but often it's a reward.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. Again, like your political mind, I'm like, could I borrow that for tomorrow morning when we're doing the post-election day coverage? Thank you so much for talking with us throughout the morning. And I believe that we'll be talking to you again here shortly. But for now, it is 9:21. Let's get over to Catherine on this election day for